Welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, a joint presentation between IPM and Atlantis titled VDI Performance at Scale. We'll get started in just a moment, but wanted to go over a few logistics before we start the presentation. My name's Shannon Hazing with IPM, and I'll be moderating today's session. We are recording the entire presentation, and we'll be sending it out post-event. But if you have any questions of anything that comes up throughout the presentation, please go ahead and log those into the question panel inside the GoToWebinar control. I'll be watching those throughout this session and we'll ask those at the end. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into the content, there may be a few of you that are not familiar with Atlantis or IPM. So I wanted to dive in on some short introductions about the company and the presenters. So let's get started with Peyton McGinnis at IPM. Peyton?
Hi, thanks Shannon. My name is Peyton McGinnis. I've been at IPM about 6 years. Executive Director for Finance and Services. Real key focus on my team is around VDI. Jared?
Sure. Hey, Jared Hoover with Atlantis, and I'm a senior solutions architect. And Atlantis was founded in 2006, focused on VDI, and really have expanded that to be all software-defined storage. And we just have a track record of success in the financial vertical, which is part of our case study today.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll hand it back over to Peyton to dive into the business background of today's case study. Back to you, Peyton.
Sure, thanks. Well, before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I know it's here on the East Coast. If you're joining in, it's pretty white and snowy out today, but I'm glad you're able to join us. Today's message will really be around VDI and how you can ensure that your performance will scale. I'm guessing that most of you have a list of success criteria or current VDI environment or a project in the works already, and I'm looking forward to hearing from each of you after this call, whether it has to do with scale challenges or proper planning and or approach methodology. With the VDI, we continue to hear from customers that VDI is slow, we know what we're doing, hyperconvergent solutions are finally the answer, we need more infrastructure or flash arrays, and you know what? All of these answers are true and may work. However, how do you determine where your issues are? How do you mitigate risk going forward? Because failure is not an option in today's marketplace. The technologies all work, it's just how do they work together and how do you become successful deploying these? The real difference is that you have to have done this 1,000 times. You need to know how to optimize the apps for VDI, the solution, the app delivery tools, the design. You have to know your users, how they work, have to have a proven plan in place before you get started. And if you're having all these issues, please call us. My team will help you put this in place and help you get on the right track to success. A little about IPM. We've been in business for over 30 years, serving various industries here in the tri-state area. We're known for our values, our expertise, our engineering and custom IP, and best-of-breed technology partners like Atlantis Computing, who's joining us today. Our reputation has been built on a proven experience through customer engagements and references, our transparency in our approach and delivery, exceptional customer experience, and long-term investment in the overall customer relationship. Our core expertise is highly focused around 4 major pillars of success, which are server, desktop, application, storage virtualization and migrations, complex infrastructure projects, which are typically required by firms looking to leverage technology as differentiators or competitive edge in their business, systems management tools, security and automation, for businesses that are focusing on streamlining processes and giving back time for innovation and a competitive edge, and managed services and PMO services that focus on structure, processes, monitoring, security remediation, automation, governance, etc. IPM's methodology when approaching these types of highly disruptive projects has been proven and refined over many years delivering complex solutions. These foundational building blocks is a key ingredient when engaging on any project that requires an expert to share the project responsibility and to ensure that our customers are prepared to mitigate risk, stay in budget, and deliver on the promises being made to the business. And while we continue to grow and look for the next great customer, complex opportunity, new technology, high-profile deliverable, or customer reference, our most special moment is when we find that special customer that allows IPM to show them that we're more than technology and you're more than just another client. You can count on IPM when you need to because we always have your back. So moving on into our case study today, this particular New York City-based global financial services firm engaged IPM early on as they were looking to avoid the performance challenges, systems manageability, and cost issues inherent to traditional VDI implementations. The company was also looking to transition employees to a new location while building a new building in another global location expected to house an additional 500 to 2,000 users within 10 months. With these highly disruptive use cases and management demands, they were looking to balance VDI persistent desktops with a non-persistent VDI solution, and without being forced to buy flash arrays or additional SAN storage, which were exponentially in comparison cost prohibitive for this project at that time. After completing an IPM-led assessment and design, we determined together that based on speed to market, that a software-only scalable solution would meet the needs of the business and the global scale requirements in the overall budget. IPM recommended Atlantis as a solution to our customer senior management, and then together we delivered the needed performance while keeping the cost of implementing a persistent VDI solution at the price point being asked to be within by the partnership. After the implementation, they were able to scale to over 2,000 plus users within days of the installation, immediately gaining sustainable performance improvements with their VDI sessions and direct impact to their user experience. This customer now plans to add a few hundred more global users to the VDI farm this year. A critical key to the success of Atlantis at this customer was the fact that Atlantis' solution is a software-only solution that allows an immediate scale-to-many competitive advantage from an appliance or other types of storage. I think from here, Jared, if you wouldn't mind, if you give a little bit of a technical background of the case study, and then maybe walk through Atlantis and talk a little bit about what we're here to discuss today around VDI to scale.
Sure. I think part of the challenge that the company was looking to solve is both, the non-persistent and persistent desktop aspects. And so we're going to look at kind of that PC versus VDI price and performance that goes into these projects and looking at its success. And so these are numbers that you're probably familiar with. The traditional approach to deployment in many companies is we have a PC, and you look at the hardware that goes into a traditional PC, and you have CPU, you have RAM, you have storage, and for the cost, you get a certain amount of performance. And this is what your users tend to be used to. And when we try to put that and translate that into a VDI environment, there's certain characteristics that can skew the pricing, right? Is the storage becomes a huge cost, and also based on sizing, the IOPS per user can go way down. And so we almost have a doubling of the cost, and we tend to deliver at the lower end of the performance scale. And so it's no wonder that we kind of go into a proof of concept for a couple months and maybe the users aren't impressed, or you do a small proof of concept, and because you're running like 50, 100, or a couple hundred desktops on hardware that you anticipate to scale, you're way over provisioned. So these first users on the solution, they're very happy, everything performs, and then as it scales up, we start to run into bottlenecks, and the users aren't getting the type of performance that they expect. And then when we look at the financials, something like storage ends up becoming 40 to 60% of the cost of that desktop. And so maybe you are in a situation where you've rolled out the first set of users on your VDI implementation, and when you go to look at the second group of users or that next use case or the next phase, you kind of count the cost of what that first phase was, and it doesn't make sense. And maybe you have the CFO or other people that look at it and they're just like, you know what, we're not going to go in this direction. We're going to stick with maybe a traditional PC because it's just not worth the cost. But with something like Atlantis, we're able to address both the cost of the storage and give you performance as well, and kind of eliminate this barrier to entry when you look at these industry numbers. You know, this isn't something that Atlantis comes up with. We look at Gartner, we look at IDC, and you know, these are numbers that are probably in the ballpark. If you have done an analysis or you use someone like IPM as a trusted advisor to help you navigate this, you're probably going to come out really close to these numbers. So, and especially persistent, right? This is to give you the same type of approach that people are used to with their desktops. A lot of times with VDI, the first users, maybe it is a non-persistent desktop because your users in that first wave, they have all the same applications, they have the same type of workload profile, and so it's easy to kind of put them into a non-persistent desktop, which helps with keeping the storage cost down. But at some point, you're probably going to get to where a persistent desktop use case, when you get into your knowledge workers, when you get into your power users, and they have different application mixes and needs that probably aren't going to fit into a non-persistent floating desktop pool. And those are the numbers that can really start to double the cost of when you look at a PC cost. And that's when we look at, you know, people that have deployed solutions that it was like $1,600 per seat. And, you know, that's not sustainable. That's not going to scale to thousands of users. You know, no company wants to sign up for that type of cost structure. So if we could just go to the next slide, please, Shannon. So one of the ways to address this is with Atlantis technology, we can do hyperconverged. We're able to use server-side resources and make use of any type of storage in order to give you the performance and the capacity in order to run these workloads. And so Atlantis is all software and runs on your hypervisor and can do deduplication, I/O acceleration, write coalescing, which we'll get to in the next slide, and be able to perform like that local desktop, probably even better than a local desktop. You know, we're able to size this. You have a lot of users these days that they use an iPad or they have a Mac AirBook, and so it's not just about having 80 to 150 IOPS like a traditional spinning disk inside of your PC. These users are kind of used to having maybe a couple hundred or even maybe a couple thousand IOPS at their disposal. And with something like Atlantis, it's possible to give them that type of performance and also shrink your storage costs because of our powerful deduplication technology. And we have a very agnostic message. You know, we're server agnostic, storage agnostic, and even hypervisor agnostic. We support both VMware and Zen server at this point. And on our roadmap is to, in the very near future, we will be supporting other hypervisors as well. So truly, we're able to come in and work with somebody like IPM and you know, take either what you have or speak into maybe where you're going to help design the best solution if you haven't gone down that path yet, so that you're going to have success with your VDI. All right, so here's just a look at where our data services sit. On your hypervisor, you have local resources, and you see that spinning disk. That can be RAM, that's flash. There's also SAN or NAS as well behind this that we can leverage. And we give you the flexibility to create a virtual volume out of the resources that are going to give you the performance characteristics that your workload needs. So let's say that you are deploying a non-persistent desktop. Well, we have the ability to create a all-memory data store and present that as primary storage so that your desktops would be running at RAM speed, and it looks like a data store to your hypervisor. So it's very easy to integrate and be part of your VDI solution, no matter what that is. And so when you look at our data services, this is really where our intellectual property is and our point of difference in the marketplace. And it starts with our data reduction. On the left-hand side, data reduction, it's a combination of deduplication and compression. And so this is where you get kind of 10 times the capacity that our marketing likes to hit you with. is between deduplication, we do it at a very granular level. It's at a 4K block. We do it in line. It is real time. So we do it first. It's very fast. It's a single dedupe. There's other technologies out there that are kind of like a multi-stage dedupe, which isn't efficient. Again, we're very granular at a 4K block size. There's other technologies out there that are at the 8 or 16 or even 64K block. So we're able to get a very high deduplication rate. But we also have compression. And when you look at the combination of deduplication and compression, this is how you're able to get 10 times the capacity of the storage. And actually with VDI, we have some customers that are getting 20 times the capacity of that underlying storage. So it's very powerful. On top of that is I/O acceleration. You think about your VDI workload, this is a very taxing workload on your SAN, on your infrastructure, and it kind of, without any type of Atlantis involved in the solution, you're putting a lot of IOs that can be driven to your SAN or NAS, and it can become a bottleneck. And also, it's very peaks and valleys, right? There's boot storms. The desktops users can be coming back from lunch, and it can overload the system, and you have to size it for just the absolute worst, and so you end up over provisioning a lot of times. But even if you didn't size properly, you can still run out of performance. And so our I/O acceleration, we do caching and coalescing of those writes. We take all those 4K blocks on the front end, and we're able to deduplicate it so that not just data is deduplicated, the I/O is deduplicated, because so many things that you do in VDI, it's repetitive. You have users that are doing a lot of the same things. Windows does a lot of the same things. And so we're able to do the acknowledgement of both reads and writes most of the time. Like 90% of the time, we're able to acknowledge the reads and the writes on the server side. So it prevents a lot of the traffic from having to go across your network and hitting your SAN, or even if it goes down to local resources on the host in a hyper-converged solution. And when those IOs do go down, we're able to coalesce them so that all those IOs on the front end can be put together into a single optimized IO that gets written to the back end. So that's our IO acceleration. Data management, we have a plugin for VMware so that we look like a storage array to the hypervisor. So cloning happens very fast. With just a couple seconds, we can fully represent to the hypervisor that a VM has been completely copied. For data mobility, we have a great technology called teleport. This is another area of our patents where teleport is basically a dedupe-aware storage demotion of your VM so that you only have to move the minimum amount of data in order for that VM to be fully represented on another volume. So we call it teleport. It's kind of like in Star Trek, where that VM is just going to appear in that other volume because all we have to move over is like a couple percentage points of the entire VM in order for it to appear over there. Security, we have encryption and data protection built into our product, and of course we can work with whatever you're already doing as far as backup and high availability. And for protocols, we can mount as NFS and iSCSI, and very shortly we'll be adding SMB and object-based protocols so that our data store can be very flexible in how we present in your hypervisor environment. But for VDI, 9 times out of 10, people choose NFS because we really just present a data store that the VMs would sit on top of. So it's very easy for us to present as NFS. We could go to the next slide, please. All right, so let's take a look at kind of a cost analysis of VDI. So when we look at kind of the cost of VDI, the SAN or NAS approach has just huge costs when you look at a per VDI cost. And the server and the networking is just a small piece of that. Another approach is hyperconverged appliances. And they're less expensive than a SAN or NAS, but there's still areas for efficiency. If you look at the cost of all-flash arrays, again, they can provide a lot of performance, and but still the price point is higher than looking at an Atlantis hyper-converged approach, because the combination of our software and the local resources on the server is the best of all categories, because you're looking at the least expensive resources and hardware and being able to stitch them together with our software into an enterprise virtual volume. And it really drives down, your capital expense. And so when you look at the pieces in a VDI, the total acquisition cost of VDI, what can we shrink? You have the purple thing at the top is your Microsoft VDI license. That's probably not going to change. You have the broker and hypervisor cost is the 150, kind of that green color. Well, that's going to kind of be the same no matter if you're thinking about Citrix or whether you're thinking about VMware. That's pretty standard budgeting numbers for the combination of the broker and the hypervisor. When you look at your server and networking and your storage, with Atlantis, this is where we've shrunk so much compared to other solutions. When we think about SAN or NAS, this is where we're really able to move the needle. And again, this is borne out over so many case studies and so many companies that the storage component ends up being 40 to 60% of the cost in a VDI approach. And we're able to help you reclaim so much of that because of being able to leverage host side resources with our software-based approach and make it very efficient, right? With our deduplication, if you're able to get 10 times the capacity, it really works well in VDI. When we're looking to try to match the cost of a per desktop, a traditional PC cost, this is how we're able to get that down and make it scale as well. So I got ahead of myself. How do we perform at scale, right? So let's look at so many times when you look at doing a virtual desktop, there's certain things that you look at best practices in the industry because they know things that happen on your local PC, we don't want to necessarily translate into the virtual environment. So we think about 50 IOPS per desktop, and that means that you're going to do a 2-minute boot time. Well, with Atlantis, that's 12 seconds. With Outlook, 5 seconds to near instant. And some of the things that you do in the desktop to tune it to like turn off the search while you're typing, because that would drive unnecessary overhead. And so, VDI administrators tend to optimize the image, and it takes away from the user experience. Well, with Atlantis, you can add that back in and give them truly a local desktop experience. So, and this is really what's great about the use case that we're talking about is the user acceptance was good. When you look at so many times in the financial industry, you have applications that need to do a lot of processing. You need the horsepower in order to drive those apps, and that's what we're able to do. So if we go back to our original slide and we look at the traditional PC and what that translates into the virtual environment, we can take away the SAN cost because we can do hyper-converged, and there's going to be a much smaller cost on your server. And so if we slide again in the host, we're able to get a much lower capital expenditure and get many more IOPS on a per user basis, leveraging hyper-converged on your host. So it really helps the cost and the performance. Two huge things that tend to stop VDI deployments. And working with IPM, we're able to work this into different scenarios with customers, with where they are, what hardware they have, and kind of give them a more attractive cost and the performance so that the users don't feel like they're missing out or losing some of the performance or the snappiness that they had in a local desktop.
Thanks, Jared. We'll pass it back over to Peyton just to summarize today's presentation.
Yeah, so again, thanks a lot, Jared, for going into some detail. In summary, the Atlantis solution with the IPM guidance on the front end and the planning, the ease of implementation, the leveraging of the existing infrastructure, we were able to dramatically reduce their cost and achieve consistent VDI performance at scale in a very short time with a really cohesive plan and a very managed rollout. Again, at the end, you'll see Stuart's name. Please reach out to our teams. We'd be happy to come in and spend some time with you, helping you work your way back on track or just to get started.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peyton. We do have a couple of questions in the question panel. Just a reminder, go ahead and log those questions now. We will get to as many questions as we can, making sure we end on time. If we don't get to everything, we will reach out to you directly. So first question, I believe this one's for you, Jared. How is it licensed?
Sure. So for VDI, we license on a per desktop basis. And just for other applications besides that, for other software-defined storage, we can do per terabyte. But for VDI, it's very simple, per desktop approach.
Great. Next question: do I still need a backup solution for my VMs?
Great question. So whatever it depends, I guess, is whether you're doing persistent or non-persistent. We can work with whatever you're already doing. And of course, that's where we leverage somebody like IPM that's a trusted advisor already with a customer and account to help do that discovery and integrate what you're already doing and make it work for your VDI solution. But Atlantis will not drive any change or need for change for your backup solution.
Thanks, Jared. This next one is for Peyton. What would the customer say has been the greatest benefit of the Atlantis solution?
I think the flexibility and the cost savings right off the bat was a really big selling point for them, because they had very little room to move and had a lot of requirements and time restraints. So that was a big component for them.
Great. Thank you. It looks like we have time for about one more question. So next one: because you are all software, no appliance, does this give you an advantage for scaling?
Yes, absolutely. I believe it does, because we have that flexibility to choose different volume types. So we can make use of memory and flash, memory and local disk, if you have an existing SAN or NAS, and be able to kind of put together a building block. And when we look at some of the large deployments we've done, and this one's no exception, is you put together that, I don't know, it's like a Lego, right? Is you put together that building block of the combination of compute and memory performance that scales so that it's very repeatable. You know what it's going to take to bring on those next 100 or 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 users. And we've been deployed at scale. We're part of the largest VM deployment that we know of in the world. We're at over 110,000 VMs with one customer.
Great. Thank you. Again, Stuart Levine's information is up on the screen. Feel free to reach out to him directly. You will receive a message from him post-event with a link to this webinar. It has been recorded, so you can certainly feel free to share it with your team. Also, as soon as we shut the webinar off, you will receive a survey about today's session. Would love to get some feedback from you. So if you have an extra minute or two, please go ahead and provide that. We do have one more webinar of the VDI series coming up 2 weeks from today, same time. And an invitation will be coming from Stuart for that as well. Thank you all so much for taking the time, Jared and Peyton. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.